Well, hello friends and welcome to my channel. My name is EJ and in this video we are going to be diving into a new horror movie. I cannot believe I am talking about this, but I'm actually pretty excited to dive into it. Yes, we are going to be talking about Winnie-the-Pooh, Blood and Honey. During my recent travels and in my life, I had the opportunity to stumble upon Winnie-the-Pooh, Blood and Honey. This is a brand new horror film that is taking one of the most popular characters in pop culture, Winnie-the-Pooh, and twisting it up in a pretty disgusting, weird, and disturbed way. That normally would work for me. I actually like the idea of taking very popular, intellectual properties and making it for something not for its target demographic. You saw something like that years ago with the Banana Splits movie. We've also seen it recently with The Mean One, a kind of parody, a dark satire on the Grinch story. And now we have Winnie-the-Pooh with Winnie-the-Pooh, Blood and Honey. The character kind of stumbled into the public domain, and this filmmaker said, well, what happens if Winnie-the-Pooh had a really twisted relationship with Christopher Robin, and he was left alone, and all the characters in the 100-Acre Woods were by themselves and went crazy? It's a easy premise. Honestly, if this was like an animated film, this would have been a way better movie. I would have loved to see what that would have been. The exploration of using a child animation stuff with, a dark storytelling. It's something Guillermo del Toro prides himself on as a filmmaker. It could have really worked here, but here it's just a straight up gory low budget slasher movie, which isn't bad. I'm not going to try to shade low budget slasher movies. This is a person who loves movies for $10,000, $25,000. I can appreciate a movie like this, and there's definitely things to appreciate in this movie. It's just overall kind of cheap, tacky. It's definitely a gory horror movie just to be a gory horror movie, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but you've seen one, you've kind of seen them all, and that's kind of what this stumbles into. For such a provocative, for such a new topic, a new concept, it feels pretty stale, and we've been there, done that, even if it's Winnie-the-Pooh and Piglet slashing people up. In the film Winnie-the-Pooh, Blood and Honey, Christopher Robin is best friends with Winnie-the-Pooh, Eeyore, Tigger, Piglet, the whole group, and it's a charming little friendship that they've built. But Christopher Robin grows up, kind of moves on with his life, has a different life, meets a woman named Mary, and they decide to start a family. But before they do that, let's revisit my childhood. Let's go back to the 100-Acre Woods. And oh boy, we've left it in a position that's bad. It's, we see it in this kind of intro little animated thing where, oh wow, the 100-Acre Woods has been left alone and everyone went crazy. They've literally starved and decided to eat Eeyore, and that kind of drove them crazy. So we're seeing Pooh and Piglet really take it upon themselves to say, I hate anything human related. All of that should go. And they decide, we're going to start with Mary, Christopher Robin's girl who shows up here. It's disturbing, it's crazy, and then we get this group of young girls who come to stay at the 100-Acre Woods. There's an Airbnb, stay here, bed and breakfast kind of vibe. So they decide, let's go and venture there. And it's bad. It leads these four girls to go down a horrible path where they're getting tortured and disgustingly murdered by Pooh and Piglet. And I'm like, what the hell is this premise? I was like, this is a weird movie. And then there's a scene where Christopher Robin's getting whipped with Eeyore's tail. And I'm like, what in the deranged hell is this? And I'm getting the premise, but then it just kept going. And, we're watching these people die. And I'm like, what is the point? And then we get to the end, and the end is just even more what the hell. I don't want to spoil anything about the ending of this film, because if you do decide to see it, I want you to go in with the best opportunity you can, but I would say this movie ends brutally. We're watching one of the girls kind of in the group, Maria, fight her way through, and it's Christopher Robin and Maria basically what are we going to do to defeat the evil Piglet and Pooh? And then it's the final standoff, and the movie ends bleakly. They set themselves up for more movies, but it's such a wow, a depressing, a brutal ending. This hit like French extremity film where I'm like, This is mean. Like, it's a mean-spirited ending. This movie overall has a mean tone. It feels angry. It feels like the filmmakers were just like, we have this, like, kid's property. Let's twist it up and make it gross. And I'm like, you could have done this campier. That's kind of something I liked about the mean one. It wasn't great, but when you have, like, David Howard Thornton, who plays Art the Clown and Terrifier, there's a camp, there's a fun, there's a pizzazz to it that makes it a bit interesting. They're both low-budget horror movies that aren't amazing, but there was something about the mean one at least that felt, or even the Banana Splits movie, which I actually think is pretty strong. You should definitely check that out. It's like, they're more fun. They're more of a lighter tone. This movie is mean as hell, especially when you get to this ending that has no hope, no fun. It's gory, it's graphic, and I'm not saying all horror movies need to be fun and campy, but for this one, it just felt gross and mean, and I almost wanted to take a shower after this one. Director Rhys Waterfield definitely has something here. He's going to definitely want to push this further. He's already hinted at doing other properties that are in the public domain that are kid-friendly to twist them up into horror movies. This is going to be a trend. I don't mind it. Again, I like the Banana Splits one. I can see things like this work for me personally. I would love a Nightmare Before Christmas, but what if it was adults? I like this type of twisting of the worlds. There just needs to be a way to do it, or maybe a property that could, like, properly do this. Like, Rob Zombie's The Munsters, I thought he was going to do that with, but he actually straight up homaged it. But there was a studio-ish backing. The movie's very low budget as well, but I want to see a studio, a property properly do this. I want to see someone say, we know what we're doing with adapting a child-friendly thing to something more adult, but how do we do it right? I think Power Rangers could be one of the best examples of how to do it. A more harder PG-13, a harder almost R-rated Power Rangers could win me over. I want to know, what would you want to see that's usually made for kids, but twisted in a horror movie, a more adult context? I think there's a lot of stuff that could work. I have so many things behind me that I'm looking at that I'm like, oh wow, like we have Powerpuff Girls over here, or the Golden Girls, or Dragon Ball Z. Like, there's so many things that we could do that could make this an elevated, a more twisted route, and it won't be as mean as this one. This movie definitely has its faults. I like the blood. I think, like again, like this, and that scene where he's like beating him, great. There's some many great kills, the final kills, the fire effects. There's a lot of good moments. There's these like 4 town guys who come up and Pooh just goes through them. Those are the ones that I'm like, that's the stuff that I like. The gore, I like the brutality of this movie. I just think the story could be a bit more polished. I think the filmmaking wasn't bad. I think like Rhys Waterfield is, Rhys Frack Waterfield. You have a very interesting name there, my friend. But yeah, you definitely understood, if you end up seeing this review, you understood filmmaking. The camera works good, the tension's good. It's just those bland horror characters and a been there, done that style that makes this less than great. I would love to love this, but it just feels a bit meh to me. We live in a world where Winnie-the-Pooh is an R-rated horror film now, almost an X-rated slasher, and I'm okay on it. Like, what are we doing? What's going on? Maybe I've just been so broken by Sundance. I've seen too much of this Wolfpack series. I'm waiting for a new American Horror Story that I'm just craving something new, but I'm glad I saw this. I was able to stumble upon a screening, traveling, and it's fun. It's good. It's definitely worth an adventure if you're into this kind of stuff. It opens United States and I believe the UK this week, the 15th. Check it out. If you're a fan of horror movies, there's definitely something to enjoy here. But I'm warning you, it's low budget, it's gory, it's mean, but it could be worth the viewing if you're into that kind of stuff. Share your feelings down in the comments below. Make sure you subscribe to my channel because we make videos like this every single week, and give me a thumbs up if you did enjoy. All right, everyone, let's talk about Winnie-the-Pooh, horror films, messed up children stuff down below.